Hey YouTube. I've seen a lot of talk recently about people not really knowing how to paint frost swords or frosty weapons for their sweet-ass Space Wolf army. And I'm here to tell you that it's actually really easy and that you should definitely give it a try because it's actually going to teach you a lot about techniques like wet blending and it's really fast and it creates a great effect. So with no more ado, let's dive into this on this week's episode of Knick Knack Minis. Alright, the first thing we're going to talk about here isn't so much of a paint. Retarder medium from Vallejo is actually a medium that you mix in that stops your paints from drying out too fast, which will prevent you from blending. And this whole video is going to be about blending to get that effect. The first blue that we have here is just a dark blue. It's called Amarth from scale 75. You don't need this blue. You just need a gradient from darker to lighter blue ending with a white. So I use Amarth Blue, but the next one we're going to use here is, once again, just a sky blue. It's Hiril Blue from scale 75 Fantasy and Games. You don't need this paint. You just need a lighter blue or a blue that you've mixed some white into. Final paint that we're going to choose here is scale 75, or this isn't scale 75, this is Vallejo white, but you could use scale 75 white. That's what I'm trying to say here. Any is good. We're going to introduce you to the model that we're going to use today. We're going to be painting this guy's power sword as a frost sword, which is an interesting take because typically frost swords are kind of jagged, but you can make any weapon in your army into a frost weapon, which is pretty advantageous. So this is a customized wolf guard from the Indomitus set, and he's going to be with us for the rest of the video. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to be doing here is getting down our Amarth Blue all over that blade. We've mixed in a healthy amount of retarder medium into this, so we're not afraid that this is going to dry out on us at any point. So all I'm doing at this point is just getting down thick, goopy layers of this blue paint, thinned down with a little bit of water, and you can see that it's actually quite transparent, which is okay. You may have to do several coats to get this to work properly. So as I'm adding this down, I am looking at the edge, and right here I'm starting to work in that Hiril Blue, and all I'm doing is taking my brush and working it all along the edge just to get those values down. As I'm doing this, the Hiril Blue has also got a fair bit of retarder medium worked in, and like I said before, I'm just not afraid of this drying out on me. I'm just going to work this for as long as I want to, rather than the sort of the 5-second rule, which I would recommend for regular paints. With this worked in, you're good to go for quite a while. And so you can see I'm just trying to get basic values of dark and light worked out so that I can improve them further in my next pass. Okay, we're coming in now with our white after getting our blue values down. So I just let these dry and it took about 5 minutes. We're just taking this white paint and we're running it all along the very edge of the blade really sort of delicately. There's a little bit of blue still on my brush, so you can see that it takes on just the value of a very, very, very light blue. And that's kind of what we're aiming for here. We're trying to get down this value so that it will look like it's the sharp, thin edge of a frost sword. So one of the things I want to address here is I actually kind of screwed up. As I'm editing this at 7 in the morning, I think that what I could have done better, actually what I know I could have done better, is put down my base colors and make them opaque first and then blend into those. It's a relatively simple thing. What you do is instead of trying to blend like I'm doing here, you just have colors down already. So you have your Amarth and Hiril Blue down and your white around the edges. And then you just add in those colors again, very thinly, in order to blend the edges of each of the colors. Okay, so here we go starting in on our second pass, and you can see what I'm saying about if you put down your base colors first, it makes this whole process a little bit easier. You can see that's basically what I've done with my first wet blend, which is go in and make these colors appear and basically give myself an outline for where I need to go and do this a little bit better. So I've got my Hiril Blue on the outskirts along with the white that I'm touching up with now. Important to note here, there's still quite a bit of retarder medium mixed in because I want a long working time, because I don't want there to be too much of a difference between the various shades of blue, and I want the white to add a lot of definition around the outside. You can see the motion that I'm doing here. I want to direct your attention to it. So when I take my white, I'm doing these little jagged hatches. And if you've watched my stream on Twitch, you'll know that I'm a big fan of these. What this does is it creates texture and it creates the illusion of there being a sharper edge on the end, or just a sharper edge in general, because what it's doing is these tiny little hatches appear to our eye as if this totally smooth edge of the sword is actually jagged. So it's about creating a visual identity that sells the idea that this sword is not a sword, it is a big hunk of frozen ice in the shape of a sword. So that's something to keep in mind when you're doing this technique. You probably won't get a very good result if you just sort of slather, sort of like butter on bread, a big layer of white or a big layer of this light blue around the edge of the sword. You do need to do it a little bit in a more controlled fashion. But it's still, like this, I think took me at most an hour, so it's still an incredibly fast technique that creates a really vibrant, you can see me pointing it out now, a really vibrant look to the weapon. That really isn't mistaken for anything else. It does not look like a power sword, it doesn't look like it's glowing from the inside, it looks like it's a frozen weapon with jagged, sharp edges. And voila. Alright, so we've reached the end of the video. Thank you so much for sticking around this long. I really think that if you follow the steps that I've talked about here, you will have a truly excellent looking Space Wolf army. And I think that these frosty weapons can be applied to any sort of necromantic or D&D based setting as well. Really, it's just about making frosty weapons look frosty at the end of the day. It's super fast, it's super easy, and if you incorporate it into your next project, I think you're going to have a good time. Anyways, I'm Tom from Knick Knack Minis. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll leave you with some B-roll of some other frosty weapons that I've painted.